Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video. And yes, it's new car in the garage time. And this video is going to be about this car under the cover, which will get revealed in a moment, why I chose it, and also the car it is replacing, which is the Lotus Emira, which has been a wonderful journey getting to know the revitalised Lotus. But there are reasons why I decided to sell it and move to some other former car, which is that one there. And I'm itching to show you. I only picked it up yesterday and lots to tell you. Let's start off though with Lotus Emira and the journey I enjoyed with that car. I was looking at the timeline, and since Geely bought Lotus, in the media there was this excitement. What are Geely going to do with Lotus? I've seen them transform Volvo and be really successful with that. And then Lotus, there was this energy. If you go back, I think it was 2019, July 2019, I was invited by Lotus down to London. Could I bring my little Lotus Elan into London? They wanted yellow cars there. And that was one of the chosen ones. And they were going to reveal their new supercar, as it turned out, the Lotus Emira. And that is their electric supercar. And I can remember being there, quite a buzz. Russell Carr took the covers off and then explained the design. And it was a bit of a wow moment. We hadn't seen a Lotus supercar like this, 2,000 horsepower. And, you know, I don't quite understand the idea behind electric supercars. I'm not sure if they're quite right. But the design was off the scale. Russell and his team did a fantastic job. They call it porous design, those sort of great big vents if you look at it at the back. And it looked fantastic, world-beating in design terms. So that was the buzz going on. And we knew there was a sports car coming. And I thought, well, this is the design language. This is going to be great to see how this is all going to work. As I say, that was July 19. A little thing happened in February, March 2020. We went into lockdown and it was all a bit quiet. But the excitement built again because I think it was July 2021, another invite arrived, and that was to go to Heffel to see their new sports car. We knew it's going to be the V6 again, but there was talk of other engines, and it was a proper reveal. Hadn't seen anything, no disguised cars, nothing. Chucked it down the rain when we were there. It was crazy. There was thunder and lightning, and then it was revealed. I thought, wow, design again. Russell Carr had done a brilliant job. I thought, I'm going to order one. This is just going to be fun. No talking of prices. There was rumours that it was going to be the i4, as it turned out to be, the four-cylinder AMG engine one, around the £60,000 mark. But they're going to do a first edition model. That was it, really. So, as I say, that was July 21. And the following week, it then went to Goodwood Festival Speed, and loads of people put deposits down. It was very easy to order a new Emira at the time. There was attractive finance deal, and everybody was really excited, even though we didn't know the final pricing or anything at that point. And then sort of delays came in. I did a passenger ride in October 21. June 22, we did our first review of it in the garage here. And then it just, for some reason, they weren't coming out the factory as quickly as everyone expected. And there was a little bit of grumpiness. Where's my Emira? They set up a sort of agency, a place to have your car serviced and things, but you were buying it as an agency model. So you didn't really have a relationship with a dealer and a bloke there, and you used to go and see, and if you want to drop by the Lotus dealer at Saturday, it wasn't quite like that. There was no negotiation. You bought it online and then they delivered and they would look after it. Anyway, finally, October, we went up to line, see it built. I had all that signatures done by the guys. Picked it up in November and went straight off on our trip into Italy. And it was a fairly brave thing to do, but I needed to do it. I had date constraints. I thought, if I don't do a road test now, it's going to be winter and we won't do it at all. And it performed very well. I remember the only thing I'd say, when I drove it away from Heffel, I wasn't sort of sure about the seats. That was my one sort of worry. But I did that trip, didn't have any backache or anything. But it was a very good way of getting to know the car. I liked the way it all hooked up, all the CarPlay worked, charged along, quite a lot of wind noise when I took it on the autobahn, I seem to remember. But generally, it was pretty good. and we're running it in, so we weren't really pushing it. But we enjoyed it. And then I started to use it fairly regularly. It just used to sit out the house. Had one or two issues. It used to mist up all the time. You couldn't clear the windows. There was something going on with the air conditioning. But other than that, it was fine. And then 23, once summer arrived, the trouble I have with this garage is I wander in here and I think, oh, which car should I take? And number one, I have to say, is the Countach. If there's any excuse to take a car out of here, it's the Countach that is top of the list, because it's just mad, crazy, and I still pinch myself I actually own it. Or, weirdly, at the completely other end is the Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, because that offers a drive experience like no other, super smooth, and if there's a few of us, then we'll take that. Or the Elan, just because it's fun and I've owned it forever, and I just revel in its sort of tininess and the fact it's just so dynamic and really enjoyable. So the Emira didn't actually, after the initial excitement on that first winter, didn't gain the miles as much as I expected. The next thing that happened, December 23, I got a phone call from Lotus to do a review on the Lotus Electra. And I got that in here. And I was starting to have my doubts on where Lotus were heading. There'd been no sort of news of updates on the Emira. It was still selling first editions. The price had rocketed up. People were grumbling they still hadn't got their car. And there was sort of cancelled orders. So there was not as much good news around Lotus. That euphoria of 2019 seemed to be waning. And I got the Electra in, and impressive in a number of ways. The cabin interior and the space and the design, I personally thought was very good. What wasn't there were the things I expect from a Lotus, and that's efficiency and clever engineering. And it just seemed to have a great big battery, not particularly efficient, not particularly slippery, and the range wasn't what it should have been. And at that point, I thought, well, perhaps this Geely Lotus vision, I'm not part of it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would in 2019 when I saw that Evija. And we still hadn't had a drive of Evija. And I thought, we haven't even seen an autocar road test on the Emira V6 or i4. I hadn't seen anybody who had actually taken delivery of their i4 as well. And I thought, what's happening? And the price had gone rocketing up. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to move the Emira on. I'm going to go to somewhere else. And I wasn't sure what I was going to buy. And then if you're regular on this channel, you'll notice I did that drive of that McLaren 750S down to the south of France. It was fantastic, that car. It was everything I sort of enjoyed with McLaren. I do enjoy McLarens. I hadn't really considered it, and I suddenly sort of thought, well, this is actually where I want Lotus to be. High tech, great design, carbon tub, usable wheel, steering, kept hydraulic steering, all those things. If you really enjoy driving, McLaren just get it right. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to replace it with McLaren. That's what I'm going to get. And then I had a conversation at McLaren about something else. I said, I really like that colour of that McLaren, the serpentine green it was. Are there any cars in that colour? Is it very rare? He says, oh, we're just about to sell we've got a GT and marketed painted that colour. And I thought, oh, I quite like the GT as well. It's a sort of different sort of McLaren. It's got the space. We do road tours and things. Maybe I went for that. I said, could I just try it out, have a look at it? And it got delivered up here. I lived with it over a weekend. I had it parked in here next to the Emira. And it was mighty impressive. I didn't realise it didn't have the accumulated on suspension, the trick stuff that McLaren do. But the suspension was terrific. It went better than I remembered. And it was sort of practical, but I didn't really fall in love with the way it looked. And looking at the Emira, every time I saw it, fantastic design. Still, all during the whole ownership, I just loved that. Wanted a price to change, and it was quite chunky to get into the GT. We're approaching sort of £75,000-80,000 to change the Emira into that, and I really didn't want to spend more than 50, 60. And I'd been looking at 12Cs, but they're so variable in quality. I like the GT series as well. I'd been watching John Thorne's videos Thornley Motorsport. If you're thinking of getting McLaren, spend a couple of evenings watching John Thorns. He has been doing McLaren for some time and has put all his knowledge into terrific buying guide type videos on YouTube, and you'll learn a load of things. So then the target sort of moved. I looked at Spider 12Cs and I thought that's quite a good story, because didn't have to spend a lot of money to get out of Emira into one of those, but they were lots of owners, hadn't been maintained and things. So I sort of moved up the price range, and I just then decided, right, 650Ss today are about 9-10 years old. So they've settled, their values are sort of fairly fixed. And then I thought, well, I might as well have a Spider, because McLaren being carbon tub, there's very little difference between a coupe and Spider. So then it sort of narrowed down to 650S Spider. And I missed a red one owner car, 95-ish. It was the day I rang up, it had just been sold. I said, well, if he backs out, and he didn't back out. So that was that one gone. And they seem to be black and white examples coming. I just wanted one of a more interesting colour. I went over to see John Thornley Motorsport. I tried a black one he had there. Had an Alcantara interior. I thought it was pretty close, but I just don't like black cars. And it was a little niggle on the drive that obviously Thornley Motorsport would have fixed. But there was this one staring at me on Auto Trader. And like everyone, almost everyone, you put low to high as your listing. And on the second page, there was two. There was one from Amari, which was a Le Mans special edition with 600 miles at 230 or 40,000 pounds. And there was this other one, and it was in amethyst black, 10,000 miles, but it was 117,500 pounds, I think it was. And I thought, that's just too much. It's too above everything else. There'll be something that crops up. But there was nothing that was cropping up. So I said to Charlie, he's holding the camera, I said, should we go and see it anyway and just see if that price, we can adjust that price to something more reasonable. It's so far ahead of the other models. It was nearly £20,000 more than any other 650S. But we went to go and have a look at it. And Emily up at Baytree Cars is where it was sale, up in Derby, took it out for a test, looked at it, and it looked fantastic in its amethyst black colour. And using John Thorne's tutorial YouTubes, I could spot one or two things with it. And we ended up in this negotiation. And one thing I couldn't believe when I saw it was in the description. It turned out it was actually originally a McLaren car. It carried the number plate Y1 MSO. So then if you do a Google on 650S MSO, you realise they did a run of these very special 650S. Crazy money. They were £280,000 new in 2014-15. And this car had been McLaren's replacement marketed arm by MSO. And that's why it had all these options on it. And that's the car hiding under this cover. I think it's time to take the cover off. And here it is. Obviously, there was a lot of negotiation, and we ended up, it was 50,000 to sell my Emira and to buy this. And I'm just overjoyed with this. This was about the most perfect spec 650S I could find. The colour is called Amethyst Black. And it's a colour I remember from one of my very favourite McLarens of all, and that's the P1. I was lucky enough to drive their car. It was a hard-working engineering press car, and we all enjoyed it, and it was this colour. And I think it just suits McLaren. Being an MSO car, there is a list, I've got a list here of what's on this car. But I think before I go through that, just 650S, you've just got to wind back to 2015. They've had the 12C out, and I see this as a sort of Ron Dennis period of McLaren. One-man vision to take on Ferrari. Done 12C, came out, and there were things they wanted to improve quite quickly. Frank Stephenson had joined, he wanted to redesign and give it more aggression. That's where this nose design came from. Carbon brakes went on it as standard. Lighter wheels, we'll get to the wheels in a moment, and more horsepower, quite different inside, different pistons in there, different head design, so quite big changes there. And it wasn't in production very long, but if you watch the reviews of this car, read road tests, 650S was it. This was just unbelievable. And I look at the performance figures, you know, this is 2015, even in Spider form, 204 miles an hour. The time I always look at is 0 to 100 miles an hour as the benchmark. That's how I can tell a really quick car. This, 5.8 seconds. If once you're in the 5.7 to 100 miles an hour, you're sort of in hypercar territory. Most, Ferrari 458 was nowhere near that. 488 got to 6 point something. This was so quick, lightweight, 1468 DIN kilos, they declare it. I've actually weighed this one this morning. It's 1500 kilos, as you see here, full of fuel. So, found this car at Battery, went for the drive. Charlie got into negotiation, and as we went up there yesterday, and big excitement, chucking down the rain. I couldn't drive it back because it was so awful, the weather. So we took the trailer up, got slightly soaked putting it in. If you just want to see what MSO, what's different, so a lot of it is sort of carbon parts. So I look at the lists, things they've done to this car. Just the Amethyst Black is a £5,000 extra. Sports exhaust, 4,750. And then you get to sort of the difference thing. This front area, all in carbon on this example. That's something they do. You've got lightweight wheels. These are 10-spoke lightweight wheels. Initially, it had the 650S normal wheels on it, but these are save another kilo, and they're 3,180 pounds. The yellow calipers is extra on it. I love this use just here, this carbon here, this underneath the mirror. I think it's beautifully done. Then carbon intake here. And I think the big change, which I never spotted, and once you've seen it, you think, oh, I want that on my, if I'm going to have a 650S, I want that. They put this carbon GT3 design rear diffuser on it. If you look on a regular 650S, it's not anything as aggressive as that, but that went on the MSO cars. Yeah, it's 3,180 for that, which seems quite cheap. But if you want this bit in carbon here, well, that's £4,510. That's the really expensive bit. Just mentioning, each time I photograph this car on my iPhone or anything, it comes out as a very dark blue. In person, it's very definitely a purple colour. It's very subtle, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to come out on camera. I don't know, I can go on and on. There's carbon in the engine bay as well. And then, with a marketing car, there is very flashes of yellow on this car. That was the theme on it. And if I open the door, yeah, loud and proud, McLaren special operation. That's what MSO is. MSO are this division within McLaren who do bespoke work. They also look after all the McLaren F1s. They also did that McLaren SLR car I had in by MSO. So, yeah, very loud and proud. Wouldn't be my choosing to have in such a script as that, but I can sort of understand it. It's a marketing car, so it does show stands, that sort of thing. And I've actually got pictures of this car now from McLaren of its time when it was their car. Just quickly, if you just have a look in here, enhanced carbon interior on it as well. It's got Techno Pack. Wasn't sure about the steering wheel. I never liked this, the way they mix a beautiful smooth leather and then have this perforated leather here. I would have rather if it was pure leather. And then it has this carbon along the top here, which I'd never actually seen before on the interior, and door cards and things are all in carbon as well. So, yeah, a huge amount of extras. If I add it all up, this car in 2015, the extras alone was £72,690, and this example, £287,690. Put that into Bank of England inflation calculator, that's in today's money, that's £380,000 car. And after researching it, what I've realised, McLarens were always that little bit more than Ferrari. If you wanted a 488 when this was new, they didn't do a Spider version, it's about £180,000. So, and this base 650 was about £200, £220 for Spider, those sort of numbers. They've always been that little bit extra. You can get the GT series, the 570, but they don't come with the trick suspension. These have these accumulators in here, and they're hydraulically linked suspension, no anti-roll bars. And for me, that's part of the magic of McLaren, how they've made this extreme car ride so beautifully and operate at normal speeds so well. It's the first thing I noticed when I pull out of here. I've got rubbish roads around here, and it just floats along it. And then you've got the steering, the hydraulic steering, and it's fantastic feel, wonderful driving position. Everything's just right. I have to say also, we used to grumble about the noise, but this sounds great to me with the sports exhaust, and I think it's moved on from 12C. And the other thing I like about the Super Sport series, and I came away with after the 750S review, was the air brake. I don't know why, I just think from a F1 manufacturer to have that link and this operation, as soon as you brake hard or something, you see the rear wing in your rear view mirror lift up. I don't know, that's what I want a car from F1 manufacturers to do. So, there we are. That's the new car that replaced the Emira. Next things to do are, we're going to put tyres, new tyres on it, because I noticed this car hasn't done anything. I was looking at its service history. In the last 3 years, it's done a total of 800 miles. And since it was last serviced in October 23, it had done 40 miles. Madness. I'm pleased to say yesterday I just whizzed it out and I've just popped it over 10,000 miles. So I've done 40 or 50 miles in it just to get it over the 10,000 mark, and it's going to carry this registration of Y17 MSO. It's carrying that to celebrate the time when it was a McLaren car, when it ran with the famous number plate Y1 MSO. So next things we're going to do later this week, I'm off to Silverstone Pirelli, have an event there, and I've booked this in to get a new set of tyres on it, because I don't like running around with old tyres, and we'll do a drive story in that. But for the moment, I am so excited to have found this car. It's great to finally be able to reveal what has replaced the Emira. I hope you enjoyed this video and this sort of deep dive into what MSO stands for. You're going to see a fair bit of this car in the future. If you have enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming on very soon.